Hello and welcome back to the podcast You're Better Than That, hosted by me, Hannah Miller, and joined by friends. Today I'm joined by Zoe. Hello, Zoe.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing really well.
Yeah, we are doing really well. Has this been the least stress-free podcast setup ever?
Oh, and the fastest.
And the fastest by a mile. We have had a whole thing, haven't we?
We have.
Last week, we had a conversation again about sound. Anyone who's been listening since the beginning will know that we have been fighting sound gremlins. It's been a bit of a challenge. It hasn't actually been our fault. There's been something about the way the particular mics we've got are communicating with our particular computer. And in the end, we have decided we are fighting a losing battle and we will go again. That's what we've decided.
What we've been using.
Yeah. How are you feeling about that?
So happy.
Good. And me too. It was the right thing. It felt a bit sad again last week, didn't it?
Yeah.
And, you know, on a wider scale, if you're listening to this, we're being honest because sometimes you can see finished products and think everything's great and everything's easy. But actually, this has been really hard in terms of tech and not being how we expected it to be in loads of ways. And I think having the courage to just go again has been a really good decision. Mm-hmm. We have also deleted some recordings. So this is a re-record of an episode because we want it to be as good as it can be.
Yes.
And I feel really pleased that we're kicking off today with this episode and giving people some more content around such an important topic around time and how we handle time management and productivity when everything about life is screaming for our time and attention. I talk about this quite often, but last week actually, I had quite an overwhelming week. And on Friday, I was going to London. And as I sat on the train, I was supposed to be getting some work done, but I just hit capacity. And I sat on the train and didn't do anything all the way down. I thought, if I try and get some work done now, I'm not going to be fresh for my client when I get there. And it had just been one of those weeks where I had said yes to too many things. The wider thing of, you know, having a busy family life and a husband that travels just meant that I'd misjudged my capacity. And we have to take those moments and think, right, how does it look different next week? Some weeks just are tough, aren't they? You know, we can't do anything about it. But I think this concept of time and talking about how we manage our time is so, so important. And I'm really glad to be revisiting it. So if you didn't listen last week, we looked at my favourite book on time, which is called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. And we looked at some key concepts in the book. Real quick, we looked at that we never really have control of time. We never have it. We are living a fallacy if we think that we can control it. And every effort to control it is a bit futile and we need to develop a different relationship with time. We also talked about life having limits, a bit of FOMO and JOMO, replacing the fear of missing out with the joy of missing out, making those tough calls sometime to say, actually, I can't do that. I'm doing this. And we also talked about recognising actually maybe we're putting a bit too much pressure on ourselves to be of deep significance. And actually in the grand scheme, some of the things that we think are really significant are not so. And maybe it's okay that we just live a meaningful life that's significant to the people around us as our priority. So that's what we looked at last time. But they were quite philosophical, like big things to chew over. What does it actually look like to do some things? Those of you who are listening who are busy in your life, juggling work, kids, family, responsibilities, whatever it might be, how do you make some tweaks? So we've got 10 steps that we're going to go through. These 10 steps are taken from Oliver's book, and I'm going to try and ground them in my experiences for you and how that's looked for me. Are you ready? Are you going to take some notes, though?
Absolutely.
Zoe always loves being on the podcast because she says, I'm picking up some things as we go. So these are 10 steps of how we can do this better. And the first one is get a fixed volume approach to your productivity and have 2 lists. So simply, this is about the idea that we need to set some boundary around how much we expect from any given day. So, for example, if I get up on a Monday morning and I say, I am going to spend between 9 and 5:30 working on my work, paid work, unless there is some sort of emergency scenario, that is what I give to that particular aspect of my life in that day. And what I do is I then fill the day accordingly with the amount of time that I've got. And this idea of a fixed volume approach, rather than I will sit and work until all of this stuff is done, or, there is no end. Because the problem is, we fall into this trap, and I'm one of these people, that there is always more that can be done, and you will always find work to do. So if you don't have a fixed volume approach, you will easily work 4 more hours than that on any given day. Anybody with any level of responsibility could do that, or interest in their work. And so if you have this fixed volume, you can close your laptop and say, I've actually done what I said I was going to do today. Obviously, things happen that mean we can't always do that. I get that. But this is like the general rule. It might be that another day you say, I'm going to do more hours today and I'm going to work this evening as well. But again, it's pre-thought, and you then fix accordingly what you achieve within that day based on what the time you've got. Oliver also talks about having 2 to-do lists. So having one, which is like everything that's on your mind, everything that's got to be done. You might have a personal one of those and a work one, and it could have like 30 things on it. And then you have another to-do list, which is maximum 10 things that are live and active on it. And you only add something to that list when something else has gone. So there is this removal of a sense of overwhelm and a more realistic approach. We're trying to develop stuff like this, aren't we? In the way we're using our Trello boards and the way we're doing things together, is what is the priority for today? And you kind of move things across into that space, rather than just feeling like I've got all these ongoing things and they're still there and they're sitting there and I didn't do them today. So that's kind of the first one.
It's also encouraging when you manage your expectations of yourself and are able to complete what you said you would, instead of over, adding too much to your list and then constantly being disappointed because you're not able to actually meet the standard that you're setting yourself.
Absolutely. And I also think with that, it's about setting a time boundary around how long a job is going to take. That's another thing that I think is really important. So, for example, I will maybe say, right, by the end of this train journey, I'll have written a blog. And that then it stops it from taking 5 hours, which it could take if I let it. I don't have 5 hours. It's only part of my job. I'm not a full-time writer. So we have to be realistic. You might say, I've got friends coming around tonight, so I'm going to tidy. I've got 45 minutes. It's amazing what you can do in 45 minutes when people are coming over. You go, oh my word, look at my home. We do speed up or cut corners or sharpen our focus when we're quite specific about the time we're going to give to something. And so I'd really encourage people to do that and not just let it bleed into the unending. So that's the first one. The second one is, he calls it serialize, serialize, serialize. And essentially, this is I have a little bit of issue with this one because I do think it's a little bit personality based. But the principle is that you do one big project at a time and you don't start a second project until you finish the first. And there is something to be said of that. So for those of us who love the beginning of a project, we might start decorating our lounge and then start decorating our bathroom before we finish decorating our lounge and haven't finished out. And the principle of serializing is you say, I'm giving my full attention to this thing, and when it's finished, I'll move to the next. So you don't allow yourself too many live projects. I would say, though, that having done a lot of work with people on personality, there are some people that are more productive when they've got more than one thing on the go. I'm definitely more in that category. If I have too much time to focus on something, I can waste it. So I think you have to work with your personality here, but there is something about the principle of completion rather than feeling like you've got lots of open-ended things. I think if you've got one really big and important thing to do, maybe that should be your, one thing at home that's the project and one thing at work that's a bigger deal. And make sure that I don't know, what do you think about that, Zoe?
I think you're right. I think it's definitely personality based. I lean more towards I want to do one thing,
you've got
get
focus
it done, and then move on. But then I do understand that even for people who've got different personality types, the idea of, okay, I've finished something, then motivating you to move on to the next thing is really important.
I agree. I definitely see the downside of being somebody who can have too many things on the go. It does alter quality at times and focus, and Yeah, it's one to sort of tweak. Maybe some people can have 2 big projects on the go, but actually that feeling of completion and focus is definitely something for all of us to foster, whoever we are as people. This third one is about strategic underachievement. I just need to cough. Strategic underachievement is about choosing what you're going to fail at. I really, really like this one. And Oliver is not talking about saying, oh, I'm going to be a rubbish parent this week and next week I'm going to be a really good parent, or I'm going to be a rubbish colleague. That's not quite what he's saying. But it's about the principle that if something is going on that really needs your time and attention, you cannot overachieve at everything. And that is one of the biggest challenges facing anybody at the moment in the current age. I think especially if you're a working parent, you've got all these different hats and you think, I've got to be brilliant at all of them all of the time. And that is a massive burden to carry. And the strategic underachievement is about choosing the things that you can just have as passable in any given season and what things are going to be excellent. So when Sam was doing a master's, for example, on top of full-time working, he wasn't able to give perhaps as much time to exercise as he would have done in that season. You can't magic time out of thin air, whoever you are. Even Houdini can't do that. And maybe if you are a working parent, maybe you say to yourself, I'm not going to make a cake from scratch for my child's birthday. And do they even care? No, they don't. Honestly, that comes from experience. They just don't. Sometimes we are beating ourselves over the head with everything has to be amazing, when sometimes you have to make a decision. I've probably told this story before, but J.K. Rowling talks about when she was writing the Harry Potter books that her house was a tip. And she strategically underachieved in that area. And she just said, I can't do that. It's going to have to go this week. And the point of strategic underachievement is that you actually prepare yourself for something that's not going to be as good in this season, rather than feeling rubbish about it. So it might be that you're keeping something ticking over. Maybe you just go out for a short walk over a period of time when you know work is really heavy. But then you realign, and maybe then work becomes something where you say, actually, I'm going to be more boundaried about work in this season because I want to take something else on. I want to take up a hobby, or I want to be present. So for me in this season, one of our children is doing his A-levels. And so I'm strategically travelling less over those period of weeks. I will be more boundaried around the work I can do. And that was a decision that then makes it easier it's more palatable that way. Otherwise, you just think, oh, I should be doing more. I'm not doing enough. This isn't good enough. And I think this idea of in any given season, any given month, deciding what you're going to strategically underachieve at is really freeing. So think about that if you're listening. What do you think you need to be strategically underachieving at the moment, though? I've given you no prep time to think about that. What do you need to be kind to yourself about at the moment because of other things?
I think it probably is the exercise piece. And there's also on Monday nights, I usually play netball, but I also have other commitments where I have meetings on Monday nights.
Right.
And I often feel like really guilty. But I think hearing you say that, it's like, oh, if I just release the expectation of I have to play netball on a Monday night, I feel less guilty, and I can then go for a run the next day or do something different. And not beat myself up because I wasn't able to do something that I can't be in 2 places at once.
No, you can't.
So
you are brilliant, but you can't do that. I think for me, if I'm really honest, this is really hard. This is really, really hard. The idea of saying I'm not going to do this thing so well is difficult because we are sold a lie that we should be able to do everything brilliantly. I think, this applies to everybody, but I think as a working mom, there was a specific lie that we were told a generation ago, which is that women can have everything and they can do it all. And all that has done is become a massive burden to carry. It's made women feel that they've got to have everything in the place of excellence. We're beautiful, we're slim, we are romantic, we are funny, we are cute, we are clever, we keep immaculate homes, we make beautiful dinners, we're absolutely incredible cooks, we're emotional emotional but not too emotional. We are bossing it at work. We're a leader. You know, whatever your set of things might be, you might have a very different set. That is impossible for most human beings. And for those where it is possible, it's possible because they've got a lot of help. Let's just be honest about it. They've got a lot of help, and I'm sorry, not all of us have that. And so we have to not be comparing ourselves with an unattainable, unreachable amount of perfection and brilliance. And if you can hear that today, anybody who's listening to this, be kind and choose what you're going to excel at. If you're going to be an Olympic swimmer, there are other things you're going to have to say no to. Like, they are then not going to be out every night with their friends in that season. Anybody who does something brilliantly has to be careful about what they put aside. And I want to be a good mom, and I want to be a great great colleague, and I want to be a good daughter. And if those are the things, and a great wife, and if those are my core things, other stuff's going to have to wait.
Yeah.
Anyway, rant over. The fourth one is just simply to also focus on what you've completed and not just what there's left to do. So Oliver talks about actually having a done list. So as well as I like to tick things off, so I often tick off the things I've done, but he actually talks about having a completed list where you actually write the things you've completed down to help yourself see on any given day, what did you do today? So that list starts empty and you fill it. And he says that if you're in a period of time when motivation is quite lacking, so we all have those times where I have days where I am useless and I feel like I'm massively, underperforming. He says, well, lower the bar of what you put on the completed list. So you could put get dressed, had breakfast, empty dishwasher on a day where you are struggling with motivation. And then on a day where things are doing better, you obviously will be moving some of those things and bigger chunks on there. But something that stops and makes us consider what we've achieved rather than just everything that's still left to do is hugely important in a world where we are always thinking we should be getting more done. So find a way to celebrate what you actually completed and what you actually did on a done list, essentially. Number 5 is to consolidate your caring. Another really tricky but really important one. I feel like as a person, if somebody wants my help or my involvement, whether that's like with a charity or somebody's personal development, like my instinct is to say yes. I think if someone wants the help or if there is opportunity out there, I want to get involved. But I feel quite challenged by this one, that if I want to do something meaningful, I can't care about everything. It's a limiting one. Let's just take the fact that we are bombarded with issues, like global issues, every day. Yeah. Some people stay away from the news. Most of us, to some level or another, are aware that there is a whole load going on globally all the time. And all those different events, natural disasters, war, famine, conflicts, corruption, local government, national government. I could go on and on and on and on here. There are so many things that are vying for our care and compassion, and they are all valid. But any given person cannot campaign for all of those things. And this is where we've got to split the caring and share the caring, for something a bit more that rhymes, and recognise what is it that particularly resonates with me in this season, and what 2 or 3 things will I give my time and effort to. And I think it's not about saying I'm going to do. So some people manage this by saying I'm not going to care about any of it. And some people manage it, by then getting completely overwhelmed and absorbing too much news. I think what we've got to do is think about, how do we find a space in between that? What can I give my care to? What charity can I support? What bothers me more than anything else at the moment? And where can I advocate, support, and choose what I'm actually not going to care about, and recognise somebody else has to do that job? There's enough human beings to go around. The answer is not for us to become human takers. The answer is for everyone to be a human giver. So where's your bit of giving, and focus on that one. And it may not be the thing you give to forever, but for this season, what's it going to be? And I think that's a really helpful point.
That is really good.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And I love the point that you make, that is, it doesn't mean you don't care.
No.
But you're sharing the caring. And if we all do our little part, how much further can we get?
totally. And actually, if everyone did their part, we would have eradicated loads of global issues. We know that. And that's the sad point. But I can't take responsibility for the billions of people on Earth. I can take responsibility for one or two things that I will contribute to and advocate for. So, number 6 is embrace boring single-purpose technology, which is what I've got here in front of me, actually. This is a Remarkable, just a little plug for Remarkable. I'm not being paid by Remarkable. I have got this note-taking device. My son is like, what have you bought that for? You could just use an iPad. But the reason I bought it is I'm so distracted that I can't do anything but take notes. I can also read PDFs on it. That's essentially all it does. And it means that I am using technology for a single purpose rather than the infinity pool of things that I could be drawn to. If I use an iPad, I've got all the apps open. I am doing two things at once. I'm just being totally honest with you. And so something like this is efficient for me in terms of my brain doing the one thing, because we are wired towards distraction and novelty and curiosity. I mean, that's who we are. Actually, one of my sons, two of them have been dabbling with turning their phones to grayscale permanently. It just makes it more boring. It just makes it feel like a tool rather than a plaything.
Less stimulating.
Yeah, less stimulating. And if you are inclined towards digital distraction, hands up, nearly everybody probably, you can do things to help yourself. And one of those things is to try and make your phone a bit more boring. So maybe taking some of the apps off your phone and only having it on a laptop, maybe not having your emails for work on your phone. That doesn't work for everybody. I recognise that it doesn't work for me. I'm not that person, not yet anyway. I'm not reformed enough. But trying grayscale out, or putting app limits, or doing things that make your phone or make your technology way less inviting. Trying to find ways of, making it something that's really boring. This quote here, this is from somebody called Natalie Bowles. Sorry, not Natalie, Nellie Bowles. She said, after going to grayscale, I'm not a different person all of a sudden, but I feel more in control of my phone, which now looks like a tool rather than a toy. So maybe give it a go, or even give it a go just during the week or within a certain time frame. It's easy to get pulled back into our tech, isn't it, when we're meant to be doing something else? Right, I'll keep going because this is going to be epically long otherwise. Number 7, seek out novelty in the mundane. So sometimes we hear the whole idea of boredom and boring as thinking, I need to find novel things to do all the time. By that, taking up new hobbies, doing new things, and there is definitely something to be said for that. But the problem is, if we're constantly seeking out novelty by doing extra, it's another overwhelming thing to do. Oh, I must make sure my weekends are full of fun and doing new things every weekend and going different places. I'm then overwhelmed with the need to find more adventure. It becomes another to do that I probably don't want or have capacity for. I love having different things going on. This weekend we went to visit our son. Next weekend we're going to visit a new baby. All that kind of stuff is good. But Oliver is talking about finding novelty in the boring stuff and your day-to-day and your routine, and bringing some curiosity to the simple stuff. So maybe that could be taking a different route to work. It could be having a different attitude to your cooking, like being really present with what you're doing. Having a podcast in your ears whilst you're doing a chore that needs to be done. Like paying attention to exactly what you're doing. The other day I was hoovering and I was trying really hard to be fully present in the hoovering. Like, I know that sounds really, really weird, but just trying to be like, this is the thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Apparently, when we do that and we are present in what we do, it actually helps us feel like time isn't rushing away.
Mm-hmm. That's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm just thinking about, I was hoovering this weekend and how I was like watching something on the TV, like on the phone to my mum, hoovering the flat, and what would it look like to just be present and stop trying to do 7 things at once?
I know, that is, I'm always trying to hack like that. I mean, I drive the boys mad with my AirPods because I'm always listening to something, trying to steal those moments. But there's something about that which is great some of the time, but it also means my brain is moving into this quite intense space that's not really very good for me. I'm aware that coming down from that becomes really, really hard. Number 8 is to be a researcher in relationships. And essentially here he's talking about having a mode of curiosity in our connections with other people, especially people who maybe feel differently to us about things, and being curious, or not just wishing the time was passing when you're in a meeting or a situation or a conversation you don't want to be in, but to take a posture of, what can I learn about this person, or what can I be curious about or investigate or understand who they are in greater detail? I was at friends last night and their little boy hadn't gone to bed, and you know he kept coming in and he wanted to chat to us, and really he needed to go to bed. And I thought, I'm going to go and take like 5 minutes to be curious with him and try and help him go to bed. And it just kind of made it less of a interruption and more of a fun thing.
I love that.
And we ended up having some knock-knock jokes between us. He told a really good one. He said, knock-knock.
Who's there?
Europe.
Europe who?
Oh. No, you are.
Oh.
And I was like, that's a great joke. Thank you for that high quality content in today's podcast. No, but sometimes it's just we're so distracted, or we're so sure of our position that we don't listen to other people's position. I've been trying much harder with that because I can be a bit dogmatic about what I think. And I've been trying to at least say, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Tell me more about why you're there. I'm reading a book and it talked about how when we don't like what someone does, this is a novel, but the guy said, when we don't like what someone does, it's easier to just put them in this box of dislike or hate even, than to try and find some curiosity and realise, how have they ended up where they are? So I'm really trying on that one. Number 9 is cultivate instantaneous generosity. And this is simply put that when you have a moment where you think, oh, I'd like to give this person something, or I'm going to send that text message to say thank you, or you did a great job, or you have a spontaneous thought of being generous to a person or a charity or a homeless person or a friend, whatever it is, to just do it and to not put it off till later. And I feel really challenged about this because there have been some times where I've had thoughts around doing something generous and I've not acted upon it, and then it's just moved onto the back burner and I haven't done it. And he says, don't second guess it, don't think it through, don't think, oh, is this a deserving person, or am I sure, or can I this or that, but just do the thing. Yeah. And again, it just frees you from the grasp again, which I think is really, really good. So I'm going to try that this week when I have an impulsive thought of kindness and generosity, to just do it. Do it now.
Kind thing.
Do it now. Do the kind thing. Oh my gosh. And then this last one, number 10, practice doing nothing, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about. We were just talking about trying to do one thing at a time, but this is like doing no things. Practice doing nothing, no thing. Jenny Odell said, nothing is harder than doing nothing. Nothing is harder than doing nothing. And this is so true. Simply just try, and I'm going to try this too, and I have a few times actually, just put a timer on for 5 minutes and do nothing. Don't even think. Like when you start thinking, try to stop thinking. When your mind's distracted, perhaps write it down and try and put it to one side, and try and get up to 10 minutes even of doing nothing. I am finding it, to be honest, hard enough to just do one thing at a time. So moving to nothing is a real challenge. But there's something about being free to do nothing that changes our relationship with time. So my final thought for today is have a go at wasting time for 5 minutes. It's not a waste, but just do nothing.